Thank you for coming. Our guest is Ray Kelly, and Ray is going to talk about the Middletown and Goshen Trolley. Ray is a member of the Railroad Historical Society. He's the recording secretary. And thank you for coming today, Ray, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Again, my name is Ray Kelly. I'm a member of the Ontario and Western Railway Historical Society in Middletown. And one of the missions of the society is to keep local railroads alive, the memory of them anyway. And this is a small but important part of Orange County history, rail history, the Middletown and Goshen Trolley, which is actually an interurban. And as we go along, I'll explain some things. First, we're going to start with a history of trolleys, then trolleys in America, Orange County, and then we'll start our journey from Middletown to Goshen. So these are all the people that have helped, and there's been a lot more. So, in Wales, in 1857, this was the first interurban. It was just a wagon pulled by horses. And that was in 1807. Then in 1832, John Stevenson founded the New York and Harlem 4th Avenue line. And today, the train that goes from Otisville, from Port Jervis down to Hoboken, Metro North, they can trace their roots to this line. And then in 1860, in Manhattan, the first steel rails were laid in the street, which reduced friction, so it was easy for the horses to pull, and they could pull a lot more. One of the things with the horse cars, men and young boys were expected to jump on them while they were moving. Now, they didn't go very fast. The only time they stopped were for the elderly and women. So, no matter where, they caught on. Here we are in Finland. Here we are in Germany, in England, in America. I don't know, Auburn. I don't know if it's New York, Alabama, Washington, but no matter what, that's the front of the horse, and there's the back of the horse. I think we know where I'm going with that. So the horse was the most important part of the equipment. These were well-trained animals. These weren't, old nags. They were like fire and police horses. So depending on the size of a horse, they can eat 30 to 50 pounds of food a day and drink 5 to 7 gallons of water. 2/3 of this was turned into waste. Now, I just saw a thing, it was on Facebook, and so it had to be true. In Manhattan, I used to say Boston, but in Manhattan, at one time there were 200,000 horses on the streets. And not only that, but when they died, they just leave them there. It was like horrible. So there had to be a better way, and there was. So the first electric railway ran in the suburb of Berlin, and it was invented by the Siemens Corporation, and they're still in business in Germany. They still make electric motors. And here they are. So the first, the first way was through the tracks. And they got the power. Then the Russians, I skipped one. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Then the Russians, they became, they had this T-bar and the overhead wire. And the Germans, this thing's very touchy today. Then the Germans, and the Germans came up with the trolley wheel. Meantime, in America, this was added, this little spring to keep tension on the wire. This is in Cleveland. This line didn't last very long. But then in 1888 in Richmond, Virginia, Dr. Frank Sprague, he's the father of electric cars, and that was what's perfected. So here's the Sprague system, and competing was the Vanderpool system. So the first electric trolley line in America was built in 1884 in Cleveland, Ohio. It quickly failed. The first successful line was in Richmond, Virginia in 1888. And trolleys were widespread throughout the Midwest, the upper Midwest, throughout the Great Lakes region into New York and New England, then down to Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, the Rust Belt. The greatest concentration of trolley lines was in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa. In the South, lines became sparser and still used animal power into the 20th century, but larger communities had electric trolleys. The further west you went in the country, lines were only found in the major cities. And by the mid-1890s, many smaller cities in the Midwest and the East began having electric trolley service. Middletown, Newburgh, Kingston, Poughkeepsie. So by the 90s, if your small town didn't have electric trolley service, you were like a bunch of hicks. By the 20s or 30s, you were a Tunerville. These things didn't last very long. So Chicago had 27 trolley interurban lines serving the city and suburbs. Indianapolis is also a major trolley center. The state of Ohio had the most miles of trolley interurban track. Closer to home, Syracuse had 7 lines. One went to Rochester, another to Utica. And using different systems, you could travel by trolley cars from New York to Illinois, almost 1,000 miles. That doesn't mean you'd get off a trolley and get on. You might have to take a stagecoach. You might have to hitch a ride, but it could be done. In 1910, a gentleman rode trolleys from Chicago to Albany, then a steamship to New York, and then on to Boston by trolley. In 1911, another gentleman rode trolleys from New York to Portland, Maine, arriving 25 hours later. And by 1917, every state had a trolley system, and there was almost 18,000 miles of track in the USA. So this is great. During the week, people are riding these things so they can get to work, back and forth to work. But during the weekends, there wasn't much profit making. So trolley companies came up with these ways to make money during the weekends. People are starting to get money because the trolleys are being able to take them, to better jobs. So they would build zoos, amusement parks, vaudeville houses, bowling alleys, skating rinks, dance halls, racetracks along the lines. Cars could be rented for funerals and to visit cemeteries. Wedding parties to scenic locations along the line was also popular. Masons, Oddfellows, Moose, and Elk, and other civic organizations were given discount fares. Now, yesterday, I was watching television, some old, I can't remember, a story television channel. They show old documentaries, and they happened to show a film of, it was an episode about trolleys, and they showed this film where this picture came from. And now these guys say it was going 97 miles an hour. The narrator of the film said 91, which is still pretty fast for a trolley car. This is in Ohio, and they would use these for not stunts, but to get people to ride them, to show how great the interurban could be, especially in the Midwest. So, unfortunately, there were a lot of wrecks with these too. Now, this is in Southern California, so I don't know if this was filmed as part of a silent movie as a gag, or if it's the real deal, like a real wreck. But you can read about these in old newspaper articles a lot. A lot of car wrecks, cars, dogs, a lot of dogs getting hit by trolley cars. So with any new technology, there were urban myths. So one of them was, if you stare at the sparks long enough, you'll go blind. Men would enter the trolleys first so they could absorb the electromagnetic currents so ladies wouldn't be exposed to them, because this was Victorian times. And there was a fear that watches would stop working if you wore them during an extended ride. All right, so we're going to get to the systems in Orange County now. So here's Orange County. So we'll use Newburgh because it's easier to see. And this is 17K, Newburgh, Cookshecton Turnpike out to Montgomery, and then from Montgomery out to Ballville. So you can see how it's blue here. The road is blue. 207 is blue out to Hamptonburg. 94 is blue to Chester. That means the state of New York is taking over the roads. They were still private roads. Like 52 was a North Plank Road. It was an actual plank road. South Plank, North Plank was up here. So these were private toll roads, and a lot was going on in 1903 also. We could see here. The society I belonged to, the O&W, was double tracking their line through Orange County to get to the coal fields out in Scranton. Erie's planning their, what we know is their Metro North, the Grand Line, coming all the way down. Oops, why this one's out of order. Anyway, this is the reason why the roads are improved in America. Bicycle clubs, believe it or not. Roads were horrible. People are writing to their congressman, they're look, we bought these new machines and we can't ride on the roads. So that is the reason why there's the road improvement. Yeah, I'm completely out of line here. All right. So anyway, the first electric line in Orange County was Middletown, and they opened May 8th, 1894. The second was in Newburgh. They opened June 9th of 1894, but they were the first to have street service. They had horses that ran from the ferry terminal out to where Rite Aid is. What we know as Rite Aid, Wisner Avenue. And then finally in 1898, Port Jervis got their line. Port Jervis is the only true trolley line because they serve just the city of Port Jervis. These are known as interurbans because they connected two communities. This is a grand scheme that was going to be done in 1903 to connect the Newburgh and Middletown lines. So they were going to go roughly, I'm going to use what we know today, down 17M into Chester by the train station, then they'd go through the black dirt and come out somewhere probably by Horton Road by the police station in Blooming Grove, go through Washingtonville, and when they got out to Salisbury Mills, they stopped. You could see on here it says Intervale Traction Company, and they just stopped because some of them wanted to go here to West Cornwall and then go into Newburgh. Others wanted to continue on 94 and Blooming Grove Turnpike into Newburgh. But when the Newburgh line built these spurs, that messed everything up, and then they lost money and they just gave up. Then in 1911, 1912, 13, around there, they were going to just go from 211 out to Walden, actually Montgomery, and then to Walden, but that fizzled out too. So these are all speculation on my part on steam trains were not fans of trolleys because they were competition. They ran more frequently and cheaper. So when the state wanted, as a few slides ago, when the state wanted these roads rehabilitated, one of the things they wanted train companies to do, railroads, was to eliminate dangerous grade crossings, and all these were grade crossings, and they're kind of hard to put a trolley through these things. That's all speculation on my part. So now the history of the Middletown Traction Company. The electric streetcar service began on May 8, 1894 under the name the Middletown Goshen Traction Company. In August of 1894, the line went to the Walk-Hill. At the same time, another company completed almost a mile of track from North Street to the city line, which was taken over by the Middletown Company and then became a city route. Their plan was they were going to go to Bloomingburg. That's what they wanted to do on what we would think of as 17M. And then on November 25th, 1895, the line crossed the Walk-Hill on a 165-foot-long concrete and steel trestle past Midway Park into Goshen. Some of this still remains, and we'll see that. It's in the part of the golf course. So on December 22nd, 1895, the last extension was built to the state hospital. So they had 9.36 miles of track total. The cars ran there from Goshen on a 30-minute service. The end of the line in Goshen was 1 block from the Erie station. In 1906, they stopped that practice. You had to take 2 trolleys to get to Goshen. So if you were at the north end of Middletown, you had to stop at Franklin Square, get on another car, and then you could go to Goshen. November 9th, 1899, even with little competition, the company failed, and after receivership became the Middletown Goshen Electric Railway. February 23rd, 1905, they went into receivership again, renamed the Walk-Hill Transit Company. A contractor took over the line, made vast improvements on the right-of-way and equipment. May 1st, 1906, the line was turned over to the new owners. Ridership grew, but this golden era didn't last long. World War I and the advent of motor vehicles reduced revenue. April 24, 1924, Service on the Middletown section ended, leaving only the run to Goshen, and then on the 21st, the rest of the line was shut down. And the day the line shut down, Midway Amusement Park shut down, which was their amusement park that they built. So these are the main routes. The main line was from the state hospital to Goshen, and then, as I just said, the rest was divided in 1906 into two routes. The local north route was from the north end of the city along North Depot, James, and West Main Streets to Franklin Square. The local south route was Franklin Square to East Main and Academy to Genung Street. A total of 2.38 miles ran in the city and was on a 15-minute schedule. There was also a short spurt of the Orange County Fairgrounds, and a milk car stopped every morning at the Borden's Condensery on Canal Street each morning. First Powerhouse and Car Barn were on Low Avenue behind the New York and Ontario and Western AV station. In 1905, a new car barn was built next to the O&W right-of-way on East Main Street in Mechanicstown, and the Powerhouse was built next to that in 1912. Fares were 5 cents in the city, 10 cents to Midway Park, and 15 cents to Goshen. So here's a map showing all the railroads that were in Middletown at one time. The O&W, the Erie, the Middletown and Unionville, and the Middletown Trolley. Oops. And here's a closer map. This was created by Alan Held. He's now the vice president of the O&W Society. So you can see it's pretty impressive little route they had going here, especially through Middletown. They covered quite a bit of ground. A little bit closer. Oops. So this badge was a few years ago. It was on eBay, and they wanted a lot for it, so I didn't even bother bidding. And don't talk to the motorman. Accidents may happen. Here's a transfer ticket. And the line schedule. Now, just before I bought this card, I scammed it off a guy from eBay. So I do have the card, but I forgot to scan it without the watermark in it. So this gentleman was the conductor, it looks like. And that's one of their cars they were having built. They brought in. Old Home Week is a big deal way back when. I see a lot of photos as we go along of Old Home Week. This is the end of the line. That's Genung Street over here. For those who need a little bit more, the Colonial Diner would be back over here. Winter Scene. Academy Avenue, car number 40. They also showed these guys what this is, how it worked. The inventor actually stood on that show I was talking about yesterday. The inventor stood in front of a trolley car. It was not creeping along. It was going about 5-10 miles an hour. It hit him, and that thing folds up. So that was, I forget what the guy's name was, but it was pretty impressive. This is post 1906. I don't know where they are. Well, there's a railroad crossing back there. I would suspect that this car is the one that goes to Goshen because it's so big. So during severe snowstorms, they could be stranded for days. And here's another map comparing with the bus routes of today. So now we're going to get started. So this is the former state hospital, homeopathic hospital. This is Oliver Avenue. One of the guys in the O&W Society said he lived in this house when he was a kid. Derek, I think his name was. Dirk. And you can see the tracks just end. Unlike a locomotive, a steam locomotive, where the diesel has to be turned around, they just flip the pole over. While being careful not to step in the horse exhaust. And there's the trolley bridge. Does everybody remember the trolley bridge that used to be there on Oliver Avenue? Oh boy, that thing was rough. There it is. There's a trolley car going over it.
I think they tried to save it and move it to
Yeah,
Clemson Park, but they scrapped that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of Doug's pictures. Mid-60s. I think that's like a mid-60s Dodge or Plymouth. That's a 60 Chevy. So this is from the Middletown Historical Society. Pete Lascaris, he took these pictures in, I think, 82. That bridge was rough. And the company that built it, that was the second one they built, and then they went out of business. And that's all they saved.
Where is it?
Historical Society in Middletown has it. I think Marv got it. Or Pete, one of them. Wickham Avenue. Snow on Wickham. This, I couldn't figure out where this was, so again on Facebook I put it on both the Goshen and Middletown pages, and there was arguing, of course, but one guy was right. He said, I used to live in this house as a kid. That's where it is. Where this, yeah, this house. So the sun was brutal. I wanted to get a little closer, but I couldn't. You could see there's a little passing here. And the armory, I think they're going to make that into apartments now. Another 1909 blizzard. So this place was a gas station at one time. And I forget, one of the earliest shows I did was like $3. I forget what year I did the show. It was like the 18 cents was worth $3 a gallon. Another view. So the O&W building station will be back here. And there it is. So there's still tracks. So the original trolley barn would be, no, I can't put, the way the train is going, it'd be off to his left. We just got these pictures. So there's the O&W station, Cafe Fiesta, Cafe whatever you remember it as. And there's one trolley car, and there's another one on Low Avenue. So where this building was the original trolley barn back in here. You can see the tracks leading back. The tracks would have went through here. So during the Great Flood of '03, the O&W leased the locomotive to the trolley company because they were so flooded out, so they could have limited power to run the city service anyway. And the entire time that O&W, the trolley company, was in business, the O&W supplied them with coal both here and in Mechanicstown, which we'll see. And these are tracks behind the O&W's railway station, and they led to the former trolley barn. This is the original Erie station in James. This is James Street over here. Depot. Now it's the library. Did a wonderful job of saving it. Another view. Very nice job. It's 1910. Mr. Bailey, he was he a photographer with the Erie?
Yeah, he went out and photographed all the stations on the whole railroad from New York to Chicago.
This is what James Street used to look like. Urban removal hit Middletown too, but not as bad as Newburgh. And the post office is now the police station. And this, well, we'll see it in the next. No, we won't. Half of this is gone. So this building is over here. This one here. This was a big commercial hotel. And down Canal Street and Fulton, that's where the urban removal happened to Middletown, where the post office is and the senior complex. And here too, Buck Brothers. That was a big hardware store. Now it's a parking lot. Borden's Condensery on Canal Street. And every day the trolley would stop there. You could see the tracks. They'd stop there and get milk from the farm to bring to the condensery from the local farmers. West Main, looking down. The circus parade. Again, the circus parade was a big deal way back when. These guys came off the Erie. So a few years ago, they were digging up the street, and I was asking the guy, you know, how much, and he didn't want to talk to me because they didn't know the trolley tracks were there, and they had to change buckets every time they wanted to dig. So it was like not happy. He didn't want to talk about me showing him pictures of elephants walking where he's digging. But there's the elephants, and it's just about where he's digging.
Did you get any of that rail, Ray?
You know, I forgot to bring my piece from Walden again.
So they just paved over the trolley tracks.
Yeah. Generally. It's much see what they did, how they had to dig all over, and he's like, Franklin Square. Different views of Franklin Square looking southwest. He used to be a lawyer, now he's a tattoo shop.
Progress.
Yeah. A couple more views. Looking up North Street. This one didn't come out good, unfortunately, but you can always, the cards aren't always true. This is West Main looking east, not East Main. Again, I suspect that this is obviously in the summer with the open car, and it's big, so he's probably going to Midway Park in Goshen. Fireman's Parade, just like in Newburgh. So, as we know, North Street was the main drag for a business in Middletown at one time. few more views. And Middletown wasn't as prosperous as Newburgh, but it wasn't any slouch either. You know, it was a prosperous, not as prosperous as Newburgh, but it was a nice place to live. And the young lady, that's Mr. Ketchum, and there's his store. Her great-grandfather, she couldn't come this week or to this show. She was at the Newburgh show, and she was telling me about him, how Mr. Ketchum was her great-grandfather or grandfather.
What sort of store was that, kid?
Photography.
Photography?
Yeah, he and Mr. Still were photographers in Middletown. Yep. I did find out too that these cards with the white borders, they're post like 1914 onwards, and they're not as desirable as the earlier cards, but you know, it's what we got. A few more views, looking south on North Street. This is Orchard and Depot. This was a tough picture, boy. I almost got crushed here. This is a great picture. This is taken by Mr. Ketchum. So is this one. So this device is to keep the pole on the wire as the trolley crosses the tracks. This is incredibly dangerous. Trolley crossing railroad tracks. The train always had the right of way, so they had to wait. Another view. And this was the O&W store. Doug, was that really part of the O&W? Was that?
I'm not sure, right? Really not sure.
North Street, around 1920 and 2014. This is dated 07, but the card is much later. I don't understand that, but it is postmarked 1907. But so they just painted over this old sign. North from Cortland. Now, next month we're going to be talking about the O&W, but what are we showing the O&W yard for? Got to look closely in the background, over here. Oops, if we go the right way. There's a trolley car. Some of these buildings are still standing, but I couldn't get a picture because whoever was taking the picture was in the O&W yards, either standing on one of their coal piles or in one of their buildings, and they got to shoot at it.
Highland Avenue Extension?
Yeah, it's going out.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so here, going up here, this is pretty steep, as we know, East Main Street going up. One of the articles I read, there was an ice storm, and as we could see, the trolleys, they stack up, they follow each other. When the guy lost control, the motorman lost control, and instead of like bailing out and letting everybody get killed, he did everything he could to keep the car when it was sliding backwards. And there was a small accident, nobody got hurt, but he was given a citation by the city of Middletown for his bravery in saving the people's lives. Another thing here, see, this is Orange County Brewery. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. One of the owners of the trolley company was a owner of the brewing company too, an investor. Here's the central firehouse. You can see how the tracks, now they're going to go down Academy, and then they're going to go across Benton, and then come back around because there's so many tracks over here. There's Sprague, there was a wreck. That's how it came back up. Alright, so while we're looking at that picture, along Benton Avenue, the trolley, there were 3 houses of people that, you're not doing this. We didn't give you permission to connect the line. So it was about 30-foot gap. So they filed the lawsuit, and the first thing they did, the trolley company, they got one of their best motormen, and they drove the trolley as far as they could till it almost tipped over, and they got some horses to pull the car back up a little bit, and then they continued on to Goshen and to the Walk Hill, the amusement park. People said, well, if they're going to do that, we'll just give in. The next bunch of people that complained was the Benton, the school, the Academy Avenue school is nearby. And they said, we don't want this trolley because the kids are going to get run over. And we said, no, the city wanted the trolley because they could use it as a taxi to get the kids to go to school. And the final person to complain about the trolley was because one of the investors owned a beer company, or one of the bars in town. We don't want drunks. You're going to have your amusement park and you have drunks. And if you saw my earlier program in Orange Lake in Newburgh, drunkenness was forbidden. They did not want drunks, so that was another thing. And obviously the trolley went through, but people would just nitpick, just like now, not in my backyard. So all these tracks over here, that's why the trolley would come up this way and go out of town. This is a really great picture.
Yeah, it sure is.
There's hardly anything left there now. Railroad-wise, anyway.
Just the Middletown, New Jersey, that's
Yep,
it.
that's it, Doug. And your favorite restaurant is no longer.
Yeah.
Okay, which restaurant was that?
Baffa's.
Oh, right. Right.
It's 1951 until 2021. That's how long it was there.
So, 2013, I'm going home one day from volunteering at the O&W Society, and the city of Middletown is getting to repave their street. And lo and behold, when they tore up the old blacktop, there's the trolley tracks.
Did they tear them up, or they still?
No, they paved right over them, Doug.
So we have to wait for our next construction
Yep.
project to see if we get a piece.
Yep.
Or you could dig up the road.
Yeah, sure. So these 2 houses I suspect are gone now, because I looked all over for them, and there's a couple, I forget the name of the street, Horton maybe, I'm not sure, and there's 2 vacant lots on the corners. This is on the city and town line with Walk Hill. And the fairgrounds. So this was this piece of the track, as I stated earlier, when they were going to build from the city line out to Bloomingburg, and that failed, they just tore up that track, and that's what this is. They just used their track to get to the fairgrounds. And somewhere in there's the ad, the fairground, the electric cars stop at the fairgrounds.
The lower part of that picture, Ray, is heading towards Mechanicstown, the main track.
Yes.
Okay. So would that be along one of the streets?
This is,
today?
yeah, whatever
extension?
whatever street that is there. I can't remember the name of it,
No,
Doug.
Wisner comes up and around. That's Wisner. Is that Wisner there?
Yeah.
So there's another street in there, or maybe it's
Yeah.
gone. I don't know what street that would be.
Yeah. So, in 1905 they built this, and in 1912 they built the powerhouse. So this is now for sale. Wolf moved out of there. Don't know what's in here now. It used to be part of the Middletown school system. And Banners, I think it was a restaurant, wholesale restaurant place at one time. And behind that, the car barn is now a church. I just found these pictures. I had them for years. I didn't even know. had them stored somewhere else. So here they're putting a car together at the Middletown shop. Here's the trolley plant, the sign that's on the former Wolf building. There it is. I suspect this was a sweeper car. Oops. And he's getting ready for Old Home Week. I think this is near the coal dump that we'll take a look at in a minute, I think. A few more views. Post 1912. So this, I think this is what they were building over in here. This is a coal dump. The O&W used to go underneath Main Street. And that bridge wasn't taken out until like the mid 60s, I think. So this whole area was coal. And the O&W would supply them with it. And there's the bridge that used to go over Main Street.
And in the distance, under the bridge, is all the malls.
Yep. And here's the equipment in the East Main Street powerhouse. And on October 21st, 1924, from neglect and lack of maintenance, the powerhouse broke down. There was no money for repairs, so that was it. End of story. Some more equipment. Boilers. Oh, this didn't come out good. Huh. Well, anyway, over here is the bridge that we were just looking at, and where the buildings were, the car barn and the powerhouse. So back here is Price Chopper, for those familiar, and this is the car wash. There used to be a pond there.
Yeah.
Ice pond. And the O&W and the trolley would get ice there and you know, sell it or bring it to customers. Okay, so now we're up here, right across from El Bandito. Remember where everybody know where El Bandito is? So we're going to leave street running and we're going to go cross country to Goshen now on their own private right of way. So right behind me is East Main Street. That's Masonic Creek. And this is one of their passing sidings over here. This is known as the ravine back then. That's what they called it. So that'd be over here. So after, 90 years, 100 years of flooding by Masonic Creek, all this was fill, obviously, and it was washed away.
Well, that looks like the old Bell building that
Yeah.
used to be there. That was there till, I think that only, like the ruins were there till within like the last 20 years or so.
Yeah.
So here's the passing siding. A little bit closer. Midway Park, and the races in Goshen. There's a couple more of the woolen mills. And this one says U.S. Mail. I don't know what else it says on the bottom. I can't make it out. A few more views. What's left of the building. And there's this footbridge that went across. And you can see how they call it the ravine. So the Quick Check is over here, the new Quick Check. And from the Quick Check to 84, it's pretty wide open, surprisingly. And looking back, so 84 is right behind me. And that's 84 there going to Newburgh. So we're behind Braeside Camp now. Oops. Surprisingly, the creek didn't erode this way. Crossing Golf Links Road. I have no idea what this picture was. I've seen 3 different dates. One is supposedly the last day of service. One is supposedly the first day the car was in service, and another one was just some other date. So I really don't know. But he would have crossed here between the pole and the guide rail. So here's the bridge that's getting ready to cross the Walk Hill. And this is Midway Park up here. Now it's Tets, and this part on the other side of the Walk Hill is part of the golf course. I think this date was wrong. I think it's supposed to be 1903, but it was marked 02, so that's what I put. You could see how flooding's nothing new around here. Another view of the flood. And this is the golf course back here. The what do they call it? The clubhouse. There's the bridge. Now they store some of their equipment under the maintenance crews. Coming across the bridge. A lot of postcards. It was a very popular spot for postcards. There's an aerial view of what's left. And here he is crossing in 1905. Kids jumping off of the bridge. And a lot of guys at the society gave me cars, and I didn't want them to feel bad, so I put everybody's in. It's just a lot of them. And Doug gave me this one. This is a great one. And you could, couple things you could notice. First, they did carry milk, as we saw earlier, and now that's on the opposite side, the milk stand. That's what's left of the Goshen side of the bridge. And people would just walk along the river. Midway Road. And the sign for the park, which is nowhere near where the park was, but if they put it where the park was, you wouldn't see it, so they had to put it somewhere. This is near the hospital. The new hospital. If you go over the bridge to go to towards the cemetery, that's where the sign is. Trolley going over the bridge at night.
Just realized, Ray, it's 100 years ago.
Yep.
100 years ago.
Yep. So one track leads to let the passengers disembark, and the other one will go to Goshen. Girls from The Shining. Oops. Boy, this thing's sensitive. And there's the station. That's all it was. It was just a big open barn. A lot of people. So I was saying that if the railroads could make money off of the trolley companies, they were their best friends. So they were here, because they would they'd work together to get people to ride both the trolley and the train. So this was issued in 1896. Middletown and Unionville was in on it too. I couldn't find any Erie ones, but I'm sure they were too. So the park opened on August 25th, 1894, and this card is from 1907. And Mr. Ketchum again. Okay, so we'll have to take a minute here. This is a good story here. This young lady is Maggie Daly. So you got to remember, in Victorian times, women didn't do crazy stunts like this. And they dressed like these ladies. And notice what these guys are looking at. So supposedly, Miss Daly is in the crowd, and Professor Kelly, no relation, he's the regular balloon ascensionist. And a balloon ascensionist is somebody that go up in a balloon and they jump out with a parachute and everybody go, ooh, ah. So supposedly she's just in the crowd and volunteers to do it. So she's a plant. She's supposed to go 1,000 feet, but something happened. She goes up to 2,500 feet, jumps out. Everybody's in love with Maggie Daly. She's a sensation. So the next year she came back and she made several more jumps. And on July 4th, she was supposed to be married and perform a jump. The jump went well, except she landed in the river. At 4 p.m., she married C. Arthur Brockett. It was reported that over 18,000 people were at the park that day. I have another picture of her, but it was really bad. I even sent it away to get fixed up, and the guy's like, it's too bad.
Any idea how old she was when she was doing it?
No, I don't, Doug.
I'm curious. I would think she's 20.
20. She couldn't have been.
It shouldn't be much older than
No.
that in those days.
So this was the big attraction besides the river and Maggie at the amusement park, the gravity roller coaster. Now I found out about the gravity roller coaster because when I worked for DOT, this, where the amusement park was, this big hill, that used to be a sand and quarry bank. And the operator of the machine let me run the machine one day. And I was like 20 years old. I'm this front end loader that's big as the dump truck. I'm having my glory. And he goes, you know what you're digging into? I go, a big pile of sand. He goes, nah, there used to be an amusement park here and there was this roller coaster and that's what you're digging into with a roller. Sure enough, the guy was right. I found that about 30 years later. So here we are, back up here. These are power lines right here. This is Owens Road. There was a stop here. You can drive on this part of the right-of-way. The town of Goshen and the power company use this to access the power lines, and there's a couple hunting clubs on each side. So as long as you don't go off, you stay on the right-of-way, you're all right. But once you get up here, there's posted signs, so I stopped. I couldn't get back to where the golf course is. So this was pretty easy to figure out where the curve is. And it was just like riding in a train, but it was quite rural between Goshen and Middletown.
Ray, when did you take that lower picture?
10 years ago.
Not that long ago.
Yeah.
Was that wide open still?
Yeah. And this is just south of Owens Road. So this is the trolley right away up here, and this is a farm at one time. So this was a pass for the animals to get through. Culvert. You can see now when you get through Owens Road, if you know where Owens Road is, it's all swamp what it went through now, so that's why this is elevated. We'll take a look at that in a moment. So Owens Road is here. This is Chee-Chunk Creek, and over time it's gotten even worse. There's beavers in there. There's nothing but swamp. I had to get back here. I was obsessed. because there was a bridge here at one time. I had to see if there was anything left. So instead of coming in this way, over here, 17 gets real close to Cheechunk Road, and if you're familiar with the area, there's a pull-off there. And I bet you a lot of people sneak off of 17 to get on Cheechunk there. So I just parked there and walked back through the swamp, which was quite an ordeal. So there's the creek, and again, I'm walking from Goshen to Middletown, not where the Fox is, back to us. I was gonna jump over that, but it was cold, and I was like, "Ew, I don't think so." Might not make it. So I wasn't gonna let these briars stop me either. That was brutal getting through them. This is all through the swamp, and we'll take a look. I have another aerial shot in a second. Then all of a sudden it got clear, and then you could see there's deer tracks or deer trails through here. There's a couple over here. There was a couple of ties still up there. There isn't a tie, but there was some real. That was a tie. So once it gets out of the swamp by Cheechunk, part of the right-of-way is underneath 17 going into Goshen. So from here, I'm standing on the right-of-way where that dirt pull-off is, and right there, and then this way, along the shoulder of 17, past Burke into Goshen.
That's on a bad turn.
Yeah. Yep. And you can see.
So roughly, that crosses over right around just about where it goes to three lanes.
Yes.
Just right in that area.
Yes. This is like Hampton Road, I think it's called. It's blocked off. So Burke is here, and then it gets kind of wide there. 6.5 Station Road. There was a stop there, and this is Ryerson's. That's a very old house in Goshen. There was a stop here, and then the final stop was here in Goshen at the by the police station, the Erie station. So I'm standing underneath 17. This is the Erie right-of-way. At one time, if you stayed on the train, you could be in Chicago. Over here is where the trolley came in. So the tracks paralleled the Erie for a way until they got into Goshen that way. So I went to school in Goshen. I went to St. John's and Burke, and all the little kids used to play hockey on this pond, and all the big kids played hockey on this pond, except for budding NHL superstars like myself, and I always played on this pond, and I never understood what this was. But there you could see a tie floating in it. And that's what it was. It was a little causeway for the trolley to get into town. So over here is 17, where I was standing underneath, in Golden Hill. All this is wiped out because of 17. All these streets down here in Goshen. See the Trolley View Farm? That's that Ryerson house. There's a red house there. It's very old, one of the oldest houses in Goshen. So we'll go down Spring Street, and then there was a creamery here, which I don't have any pictures of. Here we are coming into Goshen in 1922. There's the trolley. This is the end of the line in Goshen. Same house. And there were two trolley stops, stations. This gentleman, Mr. Miter, and across the street, Mr. Fletcher, I think I have his card in here, or his paper. Yep. Trolley terminal and ice cream parlor. So he was across the street from the other guy. That's him. So there's the Erie station. Back then, now it's the police station. And my friend Russ made me that one too. Oh, and shameless self-promotion.
Can you go back to the other picture, Ray? What's the building to the far right?
This one?
Yeah.
That's a new building, though. They just built.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
So, and what's the street that we're looking at right there?
Grand. This is Grand Street.
Grand Street.
Yep. And that's the Erie station.
So that part of the station is on where the Montgomery branch would be cutting in front of it, right? Okay. Trying to put that in perspective, I've never fully understood that with the truck. So it really didn't come out all that far away.
Mm-mm. And that's that. And there's everybody I want to thank.
Thank you.
Thank you.